What's going on, beautiful people? Welcome back to the Value TV show, the show where we give you tools to build and have healthy relationships. That's right, tools to build and have healthy relationships. Today, I am honored to have some amazing guests on the show. I'm talking about influencers and let me just say this, world changers. World changers. I got the amazing Matty J on here and his lovely wife, Aarika.
Yes.
CEO Matty J and CEO Miss Matty.
That's right.
Hey. So before we even get into the show, briefly, start with you, Matty. Okay. What do you do, man?
Okay. What's going on? First off, thank you for allowing us to be on this platform and share our experience. I'm going to give all thanks and praise to God for allowing this to happen. There's blessings within every opportunity. So I'm CEO Matty J, aka Mr. Document the Process. I'm a high-level business coach when it comes to personal development and business development, but I truly believe that there's no business development without personal development, and there's no personal development without spiritual development. So I make sure that I highlight not just resources that help people, but the source that helps people.
And Mrs. Matty.
Yes, so I am CEO Mrs. Matty, okay, or Aarika Ade, and everything that he does, I'm like the right-hand girl. So I love to help my husband build his businesses, run the plays, whatever it is that he envisions and puts together, I love to help carry it out. So that's how the name kind of came about, because every time someone will come to him for business or a service, he would say, okay, go ahead and contact my wife, she'll take care of you. So instead of giving the whole details about who I am and what I do, I just say, yep, Mrs. Matty, I'll take care of you, and take it from there. I also have a wives community and a wives in waiting community where I help women to self-develop prior to making that full transition into marriage and wifehood. So that is me.
Now that's powerful right there. That's powerful. So today I want to give the backdrop behind this. I wanted to talk about maintaining oneness.
Okay.
And especially since you said how you're you are playing an amazing role as a helpmate alongside Matty.
That's right.
And people that watch my show, they know I use biblical examples where the word talks about, therefore a man shall leave his mother and his father and cleave to his wife, and the two shall become one. So you guys are in the limelight a lot. You know what I mean? It comes with the office, you know, as you're shedding your light. Now, this question for you, Matty, like being in that position, how do you compliment her versus competing with her? Because I find a lot of couples, you know, when I'm talking to them, sometimes they're in a position where one person's trying to compete with the other. I'm trying to compete with my husband, or I'm trying to compete with my wife because I got this much status, or I got this much money, or I got this type of look. And I'm not saying that's what you're doing, but how do you find that balance in saying, you know what, I know my oneness with her, so therefore I'm going to continue to compliment her, not compete with her?
Yeah, I actually had to ask myself, because I actually ran into somebody who had a conversation that he was having an issue with competing with his girlfriend. I was like, I never knew that was a thing. So it was so interesting to me. So I started asking all these questions, and I came to the understanding that the reason why they're competing is because, based on my observation, is because they didn't actually come to some type of agreement on what mission they had together. And and because they didn't come to an agreement on what their mission is, they had conflicts of interest. And when there's conflicts of interest and you're in the same space, you might be rowing in different directions in the boat. So with me and my wife, the reason why I never experienced it is because we tied together in union because we share the same faith spiritually. That's the reason why we're together. And through that unity within the faith, it set the fundamentals and the foundation on what we need to do to move forward. And I didn't come up with the fundamentals, so that makes the job easy. The higher power that we subscribe to came up with those fundamentals, and we just happened to agree on those fundamentals. And no matter what we do in our life, any type of disagreement, we refer back to those fundamentals, those foundations of what God's will is. So it's not her will, it's not my will, it's what's God's will. And that allows us to be on the same page, literally.
That's interesting you say that, Aarika. I want you to give your outlook as well.
Yeah, I agree, because you know, sometimes when I'm teaching in my wives community or the wives in waiting, or I'm having other interviews, people are asking me what books do I pull my knowledge from or the wisdom from when I'm, helping to coach women. And I always let them know the only book I really subscribe to is the Bible, okay? Like, to me, it does have every principle that you need. And so when it comes to relationship, there's a lot of relationship advice in the Bible. So even with us having our roles and our duties, that to me is like a really huge reason why we don't find the need to compete, but rather to complete. So knowing who does what and whose role is what, I never have to challenge or question where we're going. We have the common goal. We're just different players on the same team. Kind of like I like to reference Shaq and Kobe, right? When they were on the same team, they had the same goal. They both wanted the ring, the championship, but the two of them had significant roles. They were just different. So that's how I view us and our relationship and how we run our plays. I don't have to swerve into his lane. I'm in my own lane. You know what I mean? I do what I do. I stay focused, but we get to the same destination that way.
So both of you guys are referencing biblical examples,
That's right.
and one that comes to my mind is the garden, because this is where this oneness is beginning. But also in that garden, we have the serpent or the enemy who comes to deceive,
Right.
to try to have. There was about to be a competition, So what does that look like, Matty, when? Because I mean, the enemy is always trying to play with our ears.
This is
like,
right.
man, you can do better than your wife, or Erica, you can do better than your husband. What does that look like? What are some things you do to combat those thoughts? I know you say you go to your word, but what does that look like for somebody that's listening or watching? Can you paint that picture of, how do you take captive of that thought, or
Right. So, referencing the garden, I believe, I think Adam and Eve were deceived because they didn't really know Satan's intentions. And they don't know how he maneuvers. So his craftiness. So for us, we have to create some sense of security, a defense mechanism towards things that can cause issues in our relationship.
That's a fact.
And again, it goes back to studying how Satan maneuvers, how the enemy maneuvers. And one of the biggest things that Satan does is causes dissension between people. You can call it competition, hatred, envy, jealousy, malice, whatever you want to call it. That's Satan's goal. So me identifying that what Satan's goal is, I have to ask myself, okay, if that's Satan's goal, how do I combat those strategies that he uses? Of course, I have to refer to God's teaching. So God gives us ample examples of how to maneuver from Satan's schemes. And once me and my wife study those tactics, those war tactics, spiritual war tactics, we can come up with a plan together to make sure that we don't fall victim and we're as united as possible, because if we are divided, it makes the chances of us taking an L, increases the chance highly. And I think that's what Satan did. Satan separated them through his craftiness.
Yes.
So let me ask you this, Erica. The women that you speak to, are all of the women saved?
So,
Or do all of the women follow the same biblical principles? Because there are people that watch the show and listen to the show, and they're hearing you guys, and they're like, well, I understand,
but that's
not my flavor, that's not my style. So what do I do if I don't have no word?
I love that. I love that question, actually, and I thought about that, right? But one thing that I make sure that I do, either every once in a while on my page or from the beginning of my teaching, or even inviting women into my community, I let them know the principles that I stand on. And I encourage them to find someone or listen to someone, seek advice from someone that's like-minded. So if you don't subscribe to the Bible, I let you know right up front, hey, I'm a person that I heavily emphasize. I get a lot of my teachings, a lot of my standards from the Bible. So that's where my teachings will align with. So if that doesn't align with you, then I'm probably not the best mentor for you. I'm probably not the best person that you seek advice from. So there's so many people with so many different teachings that may have that personal belief, but they don't incorporate it into their mentoring, but I'm one who does. So I'm just upfront about that. That way people have the option and the choice, whether they'll go with what I would think or the advice I give, or they'll seek another mentor or some other advice.
All right. And luckily, because even if somebody doesn't subscribe to a specific teaching, I believe the principles that we're sharing, because this is the source code, I still think it still relates to anybody. Even if somebody was an atheist, they still subscribe to those principles because they're principles.
You know what? That you said that because I was talking to a friend of mine and I said, believing in Jesus is not enough. And they were like, what do you mean? This is where I was going with this, because I was studying a story about the Roman centurion soldier, and he came to Jesus, and this is what he understood. He understood that he was a man under authority. He didn't believe in him though, but he still understood the principles. So a lot of times I say this, a lot of us may believe in Jesus and believe in the relationship, but we don't believe in the principles, so we never reap the benefit of the fruit. But there's people that don't believe in him. They follow the principles and they reap the benefit of the fruit.
Yep.
Now, of course, when it comes to eternity, that's another question.
Yes.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
That's the truth.
So I do this exercise with couples, and I'm curious to how this will work with you guys. It's called meeting again. First of all, let me say, how long have you guys been married?
6 years.
6 years. That's interesting, because in my story, I was going to talk about 6. So 6 years. Meeting again has to deal with, because sometime over the course of time we get familiar. Familiarity creeps in, and it's like, okay, not saying you guys are doing this, but
I know him, I know her.
That's just Matty, that's just Aarika, man. Come on with that. Meeting again has to do with intentionally meeting that person again as if it was the first time, the first week, the first month. You studied intricate details about how she liked the sprinkles on her ice cream, and you really studied how he liked his eggs scrambled well, not too well.
Hilarious.
But over the course of time,
we had that conversation before about the eggs.
But over the course of time, now it's like, 6 years in, not saying you're doing this, but here's your eggs.
Right.
And you're like, man, what's going on? Or here's your ice cream. Wait, you ain't put the sprinkles on. You got ice cream. So how do you guys exercise that in terms of meeting again or keeping familiarity low? So
I'll go first. For me, it happens through my outlet, which is my communities. So this sparked because, with us having the kind of careers that we do, being, people who are in the self-development space and people who are coaches and mentors, and we're always growing and changing and developing. So I have to relearn my husband over again often, right? So when I figured that out about him, maybe a couple years in, I was like, you know what? If I'm going to do all this work, I might as well invite some other women to do it with me. And that's kind of how I created my communities. So it forces me to kind of get those details and learn. And when I get them in my mind, now I have an outlet. I can talk to other women like, ooh, this is what I did, and this is how I relearned. And they're like, oh, that's a good idea, right? So for me, having an outlet, having something that kind of keeps me motivated, allows for me to continue. And of course, knowing how he is and how he moves and how he develops, that keeps me motivated to constantly relearn him. And it even challenges myself, right? To be different and grow and get out of my comfort zone and become new and fresh as well. So that's like kind of like my style, how I do it.
So you said the word knowing, and knowing comes with studying. You study him.
I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you study her?
Man, so transparency moment. Man. So in the beginning of our relationship, so I'm very analytical and observant. So I like to gather my data in the beginning stages, early stages. But I never knew how important it was to be very intentional about the process of redeveloping, resetting, until she started doing it. So I've been way more cognizant now, like as of recent, recently asking questions from a different perspective versus, I already know the answer to that. I know how that is already. So even when we were on our way here, she was driving today. So I asked her, do you like driving? I asked her the question. And so surprisingly, she said, yeah, I love driving. Because usually the man drives the car, but recently she's been driving, and I wanted to know if she was cool with that. Based on her personal opinion versus perspective, because when people see us in a car and they see her driving, they might have a perspective towards that. So I had to ask her directly, and it gave me a little bit more understanding about how she thinks, which that question led to her telling me a story on why she loves driving, which allowed me to understand her even more deeper, which of course, when you gather more information, it connects dots to other information that you know. So it brings things full circle and gives you a little bit more perspective and a deeper connection. So I love the fact that I now know that you should be very intentional about learning, even if you think you already know.
So with the women that you coach, why do you find that some women or even men don't want to go through that intentionality or that work or that process to know their partner and study them.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Because a lot, like I said, in this meeting again portion, I had learned this when in my previous relationship. I had to learn this, like, because God dealt with me. He said, Jamel, every day I look at you like it's a new day.
New day, yeah.
Every day. And he said, I need you to do the same for your partner.
Yep.
Now, it's not easy. Now, this is over a course of almost 5 years that I've been training my mind to meet them again as if it's the first day. Yeah, I know the color of your eyes, but sometimes just to meet you again, I'll say, what's the color of your eyes?
Yeah.
And then it sparks a conversation.
Right, yeah, like he was explaining.
Or I'm gonna bring you flowers, even though I've done it so many times, I'm gonna treat it like it's a new day.
Right.
So why do you think they battle with that?
So I think that number one.
Well, that's a game changer. This is a game changer.
Good question.
Yes. No, the whole thought process to meet somebody every day, like you said, that's how God treats us. We get a new chance, new
slate.
Yeah.
And that's literally how we dealt. I mean, if you think about that, Matty, like every day, and it's not easy because things may happen throughout the course of the week, and now you don't feel like scrambling those eggs how you used to.
Right.
But something in you goes, I'm gonna mix these eggs
Literally,
up.
yeah.
And then here's what I learned in the course of you doing that, and when you go to hand it to him or her, something breaks in you.
Right.
And then it's like boom, and then there's a newfound personality about your significant other. So back to the question of
Right. No,
So,
I love that because I mean, there's so many reasons, right? It's endless almost how many reasons why people don't want to go there. You have to be transparent. You have to take off whatever veil of perfection or, you know, protection that you have when you're dealing with someone else. People don't like to do that. All the women I talk to, they get uncomfortable when it comes to staring your real life self, all the good, bad, and the ugly, and the great things about you, but the things that you need to change and develop. And sometimes when you're dealing with someone else, it's like a mirror of your raw self, right? So a lot of people really don't want to go there when it comes to that. Plus, for me, it's a passion because I did go to school for psychology, and I can tell that you're very passionate about what you do. So when you're passionate about something, it makes it easier. You know, so for some people, they're just not as passionate about getting to know and growing and moving. A lot of people are very feeling based, right? They just want it to feel good and flow, and I don't have to put in much work, and if it's for me, it's supposed to be easy. But I don't look at business that way, right? I don't look at anything that I'm successful at as if it doesn't come easy, then it doesn't mean, you know, if it's not easy, then I'm not going to be successful at it. We can change our perspective when it's something that we want. So for me, if I want success in my marriage, then I need to do whatever it takes to get there. And it's going to take for me to put effort in every day. It's going to take for me to calm down, to do those practices. Like I serve my husband every day, breakfast every single day on a platter, literally. But the act of doing that, the act of serving physically allows for us to have a better day. And I know that for a fact.
Yeah.
Because I remember the days that I didn't do it. Right? And so having the act of literally not saying that I'm submitting, not trying to be submissive, you know, just mentally, but actually the act of serving and submitting, I try to practice those things every day, whether it's breakfast or it might be a light foot rub at night or just some kind of physical touch where I'm not receiving anything from it, but I'm just practicing love, intentionally practicing love, giving that love so that he feels that and he can rest in that and understand that that's really part of my purpose.
I want to say something about that serving for women or even men that may be watching and listening, because once again, God had to deal with me with that word.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we look at servitude as somebody being weak or
you're lower.
feeble or you're lower. But in actuality, and if you're a believer, that servitude should be unto God,
His
not so
power.
much unto your man. So therefore, if he says, I don't like the way you rub my feet, you're not disgruntled because I wasn't doing this unto you. I was doing this unto God, letting him see my servitude.
Right.
So it's a mind shift. And when you're saying, even in terms of business, I always say most of us like the idea of the relationship,
Right.
but not the commitment, the work, and the responsibility that comes with it. I like the idea of the business, but when it's time to register the LLC, I don't really want to do that. But then you don't have a business.
Right.
You just have an idea.
You just have an idea.
So you like the idea of a husband, but when it's time to say, okay, I got to rub his back, or the idea of a wife, and now I got to do this for her, I don't want to put in that work. So we just become beautiful ideas walking through life.
That's facts.
And we don't want to meet again. That meeting again
That's a game changer, man.
is essential. Matty, has there ever been a time where you're like, you know what, I don't want to do this? Not in terms of being married, but like, I don't want to do whatever that thing is that I did when I did 5 years ago.
I'm sure that's the case, but on top of my head, I can't think of anything specifically, unless you can remind me.
No, I think that we both have like I said, he naturally is a development kind of person. So when I met him, I wasn't really like that at all. Like I didn't know that I needed to constantly practice self-development. I thought you turn 25 and that's who you are for the rest of your life, you know, and maybe some things change, but I didn't realize like you can literally grow and develop and change and be somebody completely different. So I just, his natural existence, that flows into our relationship a lot, but because I let it, right? Because I allow for it too. I don't try to block it or say, don't treat this marriage like business, or don't, you know, and I hear that a lot when I'm coaching or mentoring women. They're like, I want it to be more like this. Or if that man leads in a way that works, in a way that's structured, in a way that is promotional and it gets results, why not have that same structure in your marriage or in your relationship? So just him naturally having the desire to develop, I don't feel like we have that feeling of staleness a lot, you know, maybe in some areas, but not overall.
Yeah.
Because we're always changing, we're always developing. We're forcing each other to relearn each other, because that's just the season that we're in right now.
I always say it takes the seriousness in somebody else to pull the seriousness out of you.
Yeah.
You know, so I think with you meeting Matty and Matty meeting you, there was a seriousness in him that pulled it out of you, and vice versa.
For
Changed my life.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Now,
in ways that I didn't expect.
how old are you?
I'm 32.
And how old are you?
31.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, man. Amazing couple. All right, so here's the thing. I got 2 words.
Okay.
And I'm going to give one to him and one to you. And
Okay.
I want you to define that word and what it means to Matty and what it means to your world and your life. You know what I mean? So the word is speed.
Speed. So there's a term that one of my friends uses all the time. Success loves speed. But for me, in order for me to like really have confidence in my speed, is I have to plan and prepare and pray a lot. So my speed comes from doing the right things the right way in the beginning, and that momentum allows me to be perceived as somebody who moves fast. But a lot of times when people don't properly plan, they end up calling timeouts on themselves. And there's no momentum there because it's stop and go, stop and go, stop and go. So I'd rather have the understanding of I have a proper plan, procedure, and I also understand that things are either inevitable, preventable, or fixable. So that mindset allows me to have the mindset of always moving forward and having the speed necessary to get to my destination.
Awesome, awesome.
Steve.
Aarika.
Okay.
Cover.
Cover. Okay, so what does that mean to me? Cover means also to protect, to complete, right? Because there's a saying in our church to cover each other's faults. So, meaning I don't need to expose or put on 4th Street, but I can actually be that covering. If I know better, if I see some place or whatever you're lacking, I can actually complete that and cover that and protect that, versus putting that on Front Street, pointing it out and leaving you out to dry. So
naked.
Yes.
Exposed.
Yes.
I like that.
Yeah. So cover is to protect and complete for me.
So your word. I just wrote these down before you guys came in. I didn't know who was gonna get which word. I was like, I'm gonna give her this word, him this word. Since you said that, how do you cover Matty? And then I want Matty to answer that question. How do you cover him throughout the course of his day or throughout the week or just however?
I guess in various ways, I would think. I'm one of those people who I don't need to, like, if we're going through something, I don't need to go run to Instagram to tell the world I'm feeling away, right? So I make sure that I give him the opportunity to know how I'm feeling, or to know how something affects me, or whatever he may have done. I cover him in the way of bringing my issues or anything that I need to say directly to him. Making sure that if he falls short in a situation, that I'm there to cover, or I'm there to let them know, like, hey, sorry we missed your call, or sorry we missed this meeting. Even today, right? I text you, like, he had a meeting that kind of ran over a little bit, and I text you right away, hey, we're going to be a little late, just to prepare you. I didn't even let him know that I did that, but in that kind of sense, I make sure that I cover him, where it's not like, what's going on? Who's doing what? Matty, you said you were going to be here, right? And you know, so I protect his image and his brand in that sense, where I'm just kind of anticipating the needs and desires and things like that we both need to have a thriving relationship. So just kind of thinking ahead is how I cover him.
Matty.
Yeah, I love that. So it's similar to how my wife covers. And as you guys were actually talking about the word cover, I thought about the word recover. The word recover. In order for you to recover, you have to cover. In the first place, we just cover again. So the fact that I never actually sat down outside of, because in our church that's one of the principles. You have to cover each other's faults,
right? Instead
of exposing each other. Like, really be there for each other to show that you love one another. And when people don't cover each other, when I fall short from covering somebody, it causes dissension, and it has residual effects later on. But when my wife does something that I don't understand, she's really good at explaining it and having given me time to understand things. She's covering my fault of ignorance. And the way I cover her, of course, as a man, making sure that we have the tools that we need to do the things that we need to do in our livelihood, making sure that we have the resources that we need, and more so making sure that I'm helping lead on our spiritual journey. I make sure that we're not missing any church services, any Bible services, any opportunity to study the Bible with other people. I make sure that I run that play with no delay.
Yeah. Man, that's awesome, man. Well, listen, if you guys are single, dating, married, and you're looking for a place to get tools to build and have healthy relationships, tune into the Value TV show. I just had an awesome conversation with Mr. Matty J, CEO Matty J, Aarika, Mrs. Matty. Listen, matter of fact, for all the wives that are listening or watching, what's one thing you want to say to them?
Okay, one thing, Jamel?
Yes, just one thing.
I can't, it's not just one thing.
One encouragement thing you want to say.
One encouraging thing. Remember why you said I do. Okay. A lot of times we as women can focus on what they're not versus who they are or what they are. So remember why you said yes. Remember why you accepted that offer to become that wife, right? And tap back into that. So not focusing on the things that are not going well, or the things that, he's not perfect at, but just focusing on the reason why you said why. When you get back to that and focusing on you, I think things will be a lot smoother. So that is my 2 cents.
Matty, to the husbands.
To the husbands, I believe that we need to, as all men, understand how we would like to be supported, whether it's emotional support, academic support, financial support. It's not just sexual support when it comes to women. And once you understand how you want to be supported, I think it's important for us men to also ask how our spouse wants to be supported, and then come to an agreement on how we're actually going to execute that. So really understanding what support looks like and defining it on a personal level between you and your spouse.
It's never too late to change, okay? Sorry, I had to say that. Like, it's never too late to change. Like you just explained, as a married couple, we have to still ask those questions. How do you want to be supported, right? So let's say 5 years went by and you weren't receiving the support that you need, but you realized you never communicated it, or you never gave that space. It's never too late to have those conversations and to save your marriage if you want it. If you know for sure you have not done enough, okay, to put that effort in your relationship, please try.
Yes.
Please be intentional. Please try for real this time, okay? And I think the outcome is going to be a lot different.
Amen.
Awesome. We out.